into this week's edition of Training Tuesday. So today we're going to talk about, went a little too fast there, we're going to talk about a vendor video that we just recently recorded that you will be able to put out as a part of a solicitation or provide to vendors on some of the common reasons why bids and offers are deemed non-responsive. So a vendor video that'll be available for you guys. A couple job aid updates. We love those as well. Talking about additional NIGP code field, which is on your items tab, as well as adding bidders. So adding bidders is probably one of the bigger ideas that we're talking about today, is that adding bidders is going to be moved back to an agency function. Over the last couple months, we had switched it to the SPO. Now that is going to change and go back to the original. I don't think it's really changing a lot of what some of your workflow has been, but if you are new to bid buy, you might see some of those changes. So then, with that being in mind, I'll go into train environment and actually show how to add bidders. For a lot of you, that'll be a review. But again, if it's something that you've been new in the last few months, that is something that might have changed. So we'll walk through that. And then last week we talked about awarding renewal line items. I just want to clarify and just kind of circle back to that, and kind of we had a couple questions after that last week, and I want to make sure that that is very clear. And then our fun fact of the day and quote of the day. So first up is the vendor video. So it's a very short video. I think it's like 3.5 minutes long, on the most common reasons that bids and offers are deemed non-responsive. So this will be specific to, again, this is bids and offers, so this is specific to IFBs and RFPs. It isn't going to be appropriate for your small purchases. But in the video, so here's a link to the video, and the four most common reasons that we see and I discuss in the video is the Board of Elections registration, needing to be at time of bid, needing to submit Forms A or Forms B, needing to submit a BEP utilization plan if applicable, and again, the Department of Human Rights registration needing to be done if your vendor has 15 or more employees. So it's a very short video. It's there just to as a vendor resource. You can go ahead and copy and paste that into any IFB. It is optional, so we're not going to say you have to do it. It's just one of those things that we're throwing out there for vendors to be able to, the last thing we want to do is deem vendors non-responsive for one of these reasons, for not submitting Forms A or Forms B with your bid or offer, or not being registered with the Board of Elections. So for all of us that are in the procurement world, this is kind of low-hanging fruit, but again, this is specific to those vendors. So potentially you could add it to the solicitation document in bid buy. Maybe you could put the link in the pre-bid conference field if you're not using that field. Potentially put it in the bulletin description field. It's open to put anywhere you'd like. It's just something that we'd like to keep and have available to our vendors if appropriate. So it'll be available on the CPOGS site, possibly on the Pathway to Procurement site. And once we get that specifically posted, I will confirm. So next week we'll probably have it posted somewhere. I just wanted to at least get it out to you guys. But it is available for immediate use, so you can go ahead and copy and paste from the slide there. Okay. Next up, okay, so we get into our job aid updates. So there is a field, and we've talked about this before, but we've not added it to our job aid. So when on the items tab for a requisition and at the bid, there is an additional NIGP code field at the very bottom when you're adding each one of your items tab. So we have added that to the job aids, and so this is where you will document the NIGP codes that are being used for each procurement. Again, we had talked about this in the past, but we had also said as long as it's somewhere, right, that was okay. If it was a Word document that was attached, or if it was in the Notes tab, or you can utilize this additional NIGP code field. We had said any of those were fine, and the feedback that we've gotten, honestly, is just let's have consistency across the board, and so that's why we're adding that here. One thing I do want to highlight is, and actually I'm going to jump out into the training environment and just show you real quickly what that is, but this will affect all the job aids. So you're going to see all new job aids with the 2020, or excuse me, 22 dot, with that being the fiscal year, that'll be the new version numbers you're going to see on all these. So when you create your item, and why don't I go out and just show you real quick. So we're in the training environment. I'm going to go to the bid I had in progress. And this would be appropriate at the requisition as well, but I just happen to have it at the bid here. So you're in the items tab, and I had created this item, right? You put the description, you do your quantity, you do your unit cost, you put your NIGP code, and then for each item, you can put an additional NIGP code here. So a couple questions that we may have is, do I need to put additional NIGP code on every line item? The answer is no. You could just put, on a lot of these, you'll have just one line item. But of course, we're going to have those that will have a lot of line items. If all your NIGP codes are listed as a line item, this isn't going to be necessarily appropriate. But we also know that we have many of those procurements where it's one line item, but you could use 5 different NIGP codes for it. So what we're instructing now is to put those NIGP codes in this field, because that field is there for you. Some of you, and we've been training on this for a long time now, maybe you guys are already doing that on some of these, and so that doesn't really change your process at all. But we had not actually specified that on the job aids to put that in there. So we're going to go ahead and add that in there, so you can document the NIGP codes that are being used. Okay. Okay, so we have a question. Previously, we were told that when adding bidders, it does not use the additional NIGP code field to add the vendors, and we have to add separately. Is that still the case? Yes, that is still the case. This is just a text field right here on the bottom where it says additional NIGP code. It is not tied to anything. This would just be simply documenting the NIGP codes that are being used on that procurement. It certainly helps for the next time you have to procure that. You can go right back to this. Here's a list. And really where this is coming down to also is just providing that consistency across the board, because it could have been documented any number of ways. And so the feedback we've received is essentially, well, just tell us where to put it and we'll put it. So that's kind of what's happening here. Okay. Let's see, on large procurements with BEP, VOSB, does all the NIGP codes listed within the items be incorporated within the BEP, VOP, VOSB worksheet? Does all the NIGP codes listed within the items be incorporated? So you would still need to list them here. So again, this is where you're documenting what all the additional NIGP codes that are being used. It's within the items tab. I don't know. Maybe I'm misunderstanding the question. Does all of the NIGP codes listed within the items tab? Yeah, so in that case, those NIGP codes would match what's on your goal setting review form there. Another question. In the past, use of the additional NIGP codes was optional. Is that still the case? So we're providing guidance on the job aids to just go ahead and put it here, rather than having it documented on other specific in a Word document or in the Notes tab. So we're saying this is the place to put it, just to provide consistency across the board. Okay, so when I added that, again, it's just a text box. You're just kind of adding your 5-digit codes there. And you wouldn't have to put all of the additional NIGP codes for additional line items. It's just, in this case, I have the one line item, and then I'm documenting the codes that are being used within this NIGP code field. Okay. Let's see, what are the other questions we might have had? Oh, so there is a specific note on the job aid. Why don't I pull up a job aid so we can kind of see what we're looking at here. This is the IFB job aid. And so I'm going to highlight here where we put it, right? So this is at the requisition, the items tab when you're creating your items. Now we also understand that some end users might be creating a requisition, and all these different agencies might be different, right? So these job aids are appropriate for all. You may have those situations where an end user is creating a requisition, but isn't necessarily, maybe they don't know all the codes that are going to be used, or maybe it's out at a facility in central procurement. The central procurement office is going to end up using or taking the baton, so to speak, at the bid stage and do the rest of the procurement. We understand that happens. So the the additional NIGP codes that are being used, you enter them at the requisition if you know them all. These can be added at the bid stage as well. So for those situations like I was talking about where someone's creating a requisition but they don't necessarily know all of the additional NIGP codes that potentially could be used, that kind of, you will have the chance to put them in later at the bid stage as well. Okay, so if I were to scroll down, we're at the requisition there. If I scroll down to the bid and we get to, excuse me, went to the items tab, you'll see an addition there, additional NIGP code, enter any additional NIGP codes if applicable. Okay, so you'll have two chances to document that. Okay, I think that was most of our questions at this point, and we'll go back to our slides. Okay, the next job aid update, which might be more of a change for us. So adding bidders has been moved back to an agency function. Okay, so going back to, and this may not change a lot of your processes because going back a few months, we had changed it to the SPO adding all the bidders. But we had said if the agency feels comfortable doing it, they could go ahead and add it, just the SPO would be checking it. So this may not be much of a change for any of your agencies if you're used to adding your own bidders at the bid stage. Now, it's still going to be just at the bid stage, so we're not adding bidders back at the requisition, so that hasn't changed. Really, all it is it's back to being an agency function. So on the job aid here, this is just a copy and paste from the IFB job aid in terms of how to add your bidders. You can see that it's an agency function. So if you had joined within the last couple months, you might have seen on the job aids where the SPO would be adding bidders. We are moving back to that being an agency function. So all job aids are currently posted or will be today. I just recently posted the IFB, RFP, both small purchase job aids. And so those will be, you can go out and you'll see now that it's a 22.1 on the IFB job aid, and same for the small purchase job aids. On the small purchase job aid, less than $10,000, it's not really appropriate. This isn't changing because, of course, on a small purchase less than 10, it doesn't even get to the bid stage, so it doesn't have the SPO approval there. So you're adding your bidders at the rec stage anyway. Okay, another thing to think about is for any bid that is currently in the approval path, SPOs will continue to add bidders just for those procurements. So if you had submitted something just recently and it's making its way through its approval paths to be published, don't worry. We're instructing all the SPOs to continue with those that are in the approval path. Oh, okay. See, I got the question. Good. Yeah, what does it mean when it says that the bid is an approval path? Yep. So yeah, that's exactly what it means. And it'll just be because we know some of those are in the approval path, but the agency had not added bidders. So we're going to instruct the SPOs to go ahead and continue with that process at that time. All right. Do we have another question? Paula, you got a question, or maybe just a lingering unmute? I'll mute you there. Unmute yourself if you want to ask a question, Paula. Feel free. Okay, so let me go back and take a look at the, or we'll show you how to add those bidders real quick. Again, for many of you, this isn't changed because a lot of you are still adding your own bidders anyway, in which that was totally fine at that point when we had said the SPOs were going to add them, but many agencies were still adding the bidders themselves. But let's walk through that step. So on the bidders tab, and all I'm going to do is walk through those specific steps that are on the job aid. So again, I'm just referencing this portion of the job aid right here, which is look up and add vendors. I'm going to select the NIGP code, find it, and then save and exit, add my vendors and save and exit. Okay, so It will be slightly different if it's a small purchase, of course, and that job aid has been updated as well. But again, the only difference between when you're doing your small purchase, adding vendors versus your IFB is the first time we go out for our small purchases, um, it is set aside for our small businesses. But in this case, I'm just going to do the IFB job aid. Let's see, we'll just add our NIGP code, 58080, and then we select find it. Then we select all our vendors by hitting the box at the top. Yes, we know we have a lot of vendors, and then save and exit. At that point, you'll see that you have your big long list of vendors, and then you go back to the job aid and it tells you to select your bidder participation. This is going to be unrestricted bid because we're going with it as a IFB. If it was a small purchase, of course, we would have chosen just our small businesses in when we were looking up our vendors, and we would have selected restricted only because it's set aside for our small businesses. But always just refer back to that specific job aid that you're doing for that procurement type, and it's going to tell you exactly which ones to hit. Okay, so in this case, we're doing unrestricted bid, and then save and continue. Okay, pretty easy stuff. It's not a huge change for a lot of you, but if you are new, that might be a slight difference in how you do it. And if you ever have any questions regarding how to add bidders, feel free to reach out to your SBO or to me, and we can walk through that again. Okay, let's go back to our slides. Okay, we showed how to do that. And now let's talk about just a clarification regarding what we talked about last week with the renewal line items. I got a few questions after that call, and I just want to make sure that everyone's on the same page. So the big takeaway from last week really was, in order to exercise any potential renewal options in the future, those renewals need to be awarded and included on the notice of award. I think where some of the miscommunication came from was I was talking about the renewal line items in bid buy. Now, different situations might be slightly different. You know, you may be in a situation where you do have three different line items. You have a initial term, you have a renewal term 1, and a renewal term 2. If you do have those line items broken out, they all need to be awarded in the bid tab. In the same way that at the time of award, you are awarding those renewal options. Okay, so and some of the concern was if the original procurement was done as one line item, which included all of the potential renewal options, was there going to be an issue in renewing when that time comes? And the answer is no. That your renewal in this specific case, the renewal, it was awarded. It was a part of the notice of award, and so that was fine. The issue that we'd be running into is if you have potential renewal options, but you do not include them on the notice of award, or you don't award them in the bid tab if there was a separate line item. So you will have situations where I understand where the renewal pricing is tied to a CPI or PPI. And so in that case, you might not have a specific renewal line item in bid buy to even check. So it's included as a part of the contract, and that would be included as a part of the notice of award as well. But the big question was, well, what if we didn't have a renewal line item in bid buy to begin with on the original procurement? So if there are renewal line items on the bid, they do need to be checked. Okay, because again, at that bid tab, at the notice of award, at that award stage, we are awarding the renewal. So on these calls, you know, we have a lot of people, and I'm speaking to procurement professionals that have been doing this for decades, but then I'm also talking to you know, somebody that might have started in procurement last week or 2 weeks ago. So the big takeaway and what I was trying to get at was you are awarding that renewal at that notice of award. Okay, so and it doesn't mean that the agency has to renew, but any future renewals would not be able to be exercised if they were not originally awarded. Okay, and again, if there's any more clarification that's needed, please reach out to me. I didn't mean to cause any concern for some of you guys. Let's see. Oh, sorry, I missed this question earlier. So if we restrict it, then a small business that registers in bid by after the bid notice goes out can't respond. So going back to the restricted bid, that's on a small purchase. If it's restricted, they would not be able to. But if they are registered as a small business, I see what you're getting at here. The timeline. Um, I mean, I think that's probably going to be pretty rare because of the tight timelines on your small purchases. That it's only going out 3 to 5 days. But if to your specific question, it is restricted because it is going to small businesses, right? In that meantime, if a small business goes in and gets registered in bid by within that 3 to 5 days, is I think what you're asking here, um, they would need to be added to the bidders list, and that can be done for sure. You just look up and add vendors and add them to it, and then they would be able to open it up. But if it's a small business set aside procurement on an IFB, that would be unrestricted because we're still showing it out to the public. But if it, so that this is in the case of one of those 600 NIGP codes that is a set aside code. So we're talking about two different things there. But to your point, if it's restricted and then a small business does go in and get registered and bid by within that tight time frame, you are correct. They wouldn't be able to see it unless they're added to the bidders list. Good question. Okay. Awarded renewal lines at PO caused an issue as we could not delete them before interfacing to SRM. Has this been fixed so we can delete the line items at PO? I'm unaware of that issue. Yes, you, as a part of the PO, when the PO is in progress, you should be able to delete the line items. Let me make a note to see if that. So I'm sorry, I'm unaware of that being an issue. Because I've never seen that run into deleting that, or never seen that running into an issue there. But I will make a note and I'll circle back to you, okay? All right. All right, our last slide, our usual, where can I find the Training Tuesday and the Bid Buy training links? All our links are there per usual. And then our fun fact of the day is it's National Waffle Day. Who doesn't love a good waffle? And then our thought of the day, 6 months from, I guess it's slightly different from a quote of the day. 6 months from now, what will you wish you had spent time on today? Hope, but never expect. Look forward, but never wait. So we want to be looking forward to these things. I just love that 6 months from now, what will you wish you had spent time on today? So go out there and have a great day. Let me know if there are any additional questions regarding anything we talked about. Slides will be posted per usual and sent out to you as well. Thanks a lot, everybody. We appreciate it.